The Staircase by the Holy Chute. I watched the Netflix series ages ago and it never got boring. Every episode had a new piece of evidence or a new twist in the trial. There were many theories about who killed Michael Peterson's wife, Kathleen, or how she died, including the owl theory, where she was attacked by an owl that came in through the window, causing her to fall down the stairs. That she simply fell down the stairs, cutting her head open on the edge. She had been drinking and, had taken some form of sedative. That Michael did in fact push her. That an intruder came in through the window and pushed her down the stairs. Michael did end up going to jail, even though there was not enough evidence to prove he did it. The evidence just put the jury against him, perhaps making him unlikable. Are there any other theories I missed out? Almost 50 years later, the USAF Hercules disappearance may be solved. By Anastasia Beaverhouse. U/Chubacus posted about the Hercules on r/morbid reality. I was given permission to post about the plane. Sergeant Paul Meyer, a U.S. Air Force assistant crew chief, was stationed at RAF Mildenhall, got drunk, took off May 23, 1969, planning on flying back to the United States to see his wife. While he was flying, he was able to speak to his wife. This call was partially recorded. Approximately an hour and a half later, radar contact was lost. Debris was found, indicating he crashed. The cause of the crash is still speculation. Did he crash because he was drunk and it was pilot error, or was he shot down? British divers from survey company Deeper Dorset think they found the Hercules and plan a dive within the next few weeks. The mystery from 1969 may soon be solved. I will update if any new information comes in. The murder of 3 girls in Middlesbrough, UK, Donna Keogh, Vicky Glass and Rachel Wilson, 1998, 2000, 2002. Case is still open. Not a lot of information, media coverage outside of New England. By Aquarius 96. Donna disappeared in 1998 and her body has never been found. Cleveland police created a website last year after the case was reopened. Nothing posted on the website since July last year, when it looks like the search stopped again. Vicky went missing in 2000 and her body was later found in Danby. Rachel went missing in 2002 and her body was found in 2012. A man was arrested in 2014 and remains on police bail. The cases are often grouped together by the media to get further funding for the police. I have never seen a link made between the cases in terms of the same suspect. Have never seen anyone discuss these cases. Growing up in the area, I didn't even know about these cases until last year. Like with all cases, it's scary to think that those responsible are still walking free. I don't want Jimmy to be just a file in a basement of a police station. The disappearance of James Hendrickson from Tucson, Arizona by Brianna Nicole 13. On June 11, 1991, James Hendrickson, also known as Jimmy, was spending the night at his babysitter's family member's home. It was either the babysitter's cousin or sister. He was staying here while his parents were out of town. The next morning he decided to walk home. Walking near Oracle Road and Grant Road, the last unconfirmed sighting of Jimmy was at Circle K, or 7-Eleven. He was never seen again. Jimmy's mother returned a week later to find out from the babysitter that he was missing. Frantic, she ran to the police department where a report was officially made. After being labeled a runaway, he was known for knowing his way around the area. Police finally started to investigate a week after the report was made, making this 2 weeks after Jimmy's disappearance. They searched all the areas he normally goes to but found nothing. In the following years, an unknown man was questioned about the disappearance but was never charged. Police claim wholeheartedly that foul play is suspected. Jimmy's family has come to terms that he is no longer alive, and refer to the situation as his death. Why did it take a week for the babysitter to tell anyone about the disappearance? Who is the mystery man questioned? Why are police completely sure that foul play is suspected? James Hendrickson. I'm Mock, the creator of Justice for Native Women, an open-source blog and ever-growing master list of indigenous women in North America that have gone missing, been murdered, or have yet to be identified. AMA. By Sister Scythe. Buzunindanwemaganadak. Hello everyone. My name is Mock and in 2015 I created the website, Justice for Native Women /. The blog is an unaffiliated, unfunded effort to explore the stories and faces behind indigenous women affected by violence. I, myself, am an Ojibwe-speaking / descendant and Oneida enrollee and have been working in the American Indian community since 2007 as a domestic violence advocate, Ojibwe language teacher, tribal social worker and child protection investigator, and now as part of my blog. In my other life, I am systems advocate and advocacy coordinator for the Program for Aid to Victims of Sexual Assault, a community advocacy nonprofit that assists survivors of any kind of sexual violence from sexual harassment to sex trafficking. My own great-grandmother was victim of a mysterious death in the 1960s. Several of the women on my blog lived in my town and one I worked with professionally, though I will not disclose who they are. I am looking forward to answering everyone's questions. Meet Wedge. An additional note, I created this Reddit account for when I talk about the blog, but created it some time ago before I began my transition from female to male. Please refer to me by my preferred pronouns, he/him. Edit, the mods asked me to add proof to prove I am who I say and encouraged me to post an older AMA I did about my other work about a year ago. Who murdered 21-year-old UW-Madison college student Brittany Zimmerman in her own home? By Kelsey. Brittany Zimmerman was a promising UW-Madison student, engaged to her childhood sweetheart. Little did he know, he would find his love brutally slain in their apartment on April 2, 2008. She was murdered in the middle of the day, just blocks from the police station. She would be a doctor right now, her dad said. We would be proud of her and we could go visit her on her animal farm and everything she wanted because she loved animals. That's what we wish, that she could live her life the way she wanted to. One of the worst parts of this case is that Brittany called 911 and the dispatcher hung up on her, claiming they heard no signs of struggle. Her parents say they've listened to the tape and you can hear screaming. Police say the case has not gone cold and they are still actively working on leads. Over a decade later, an arrest has not been made in the case. Madison police have never named a suspect or person of interest in this case. I don't think we can say that with strength or conviction, said Madison Police Chief, Mike Koval. I think there are suppositions, but my suppositions mean little or nothing unless I can prove it. In February 2016, Brittany's parents announced new DNA evidence in their daughter's homicide. Despite Madison police frowning upon their decision to come forward, Brittany's mother said she couldn't sit back any longer knowing Brittany's killer is still free. It was revealed in a search warrant that the DNA found on Zimmerman's clothing matched the DNA at David Call / a man convicted of his 7th OE and is in a Wisconsin prison. The same man neighbors told News 3 the week of the murder they'd seen going door to door asking for money. Interviewed by Cal TV, Call admitted being at Zimmerman's apartment on April 2, 2008, but he said he did not kill her. Later in 2016, Madison police believed a Cross Plains man may have had information that could help solve the case. Andrew Scholes, a friend of David's in prison, said Call broke down and confessed to him. Scholes said in order to turn that information over to police, he wanted 2 felony convictions expunged from his criminal record. Jean Zimmerman, Brittany's mom, had contact with Andrew via email. She pleaded with him to please come forward and do the right thing. But nothing ever came of this. Unfortunately, in August 2017, Scholes died in a motorcycle accident. Any potential information regarding Brittany's murder died with him. I do believe he had information that would have definitely helped solve the case, said Jean Zimmerman. Brittany's parents want the MPD to classify her case as a cold case so that they can hire a private investigator and pursue avenues the police department hasn't gone down. It seems they are feuding a bit with the police regarding the DNA evidence and potential suspects among other things. I'm still honestly, with Scholes out of the picture, the old school cop in me hopes that loose lips will sink ships, Koval said. Someone is going to say something to somebody about this case in a bar or overheard and I think someone will seize upon it and give us another lead. Those are the things you cling to. If you have any information on the Zimmerman homicide or have any information you feel could be important, you can call Madison Crime Stoppers at 608-266-6014. There is still a $40,000 reward fund for answers leading to an arrest. Sources. Photo of Brittany and her fiancé. The 1928 disappearance of Glenn and Bessie Hyde, vanished during a honeymoon river rafting trip through the Grand Canyon by Robin Werder 1. In 1928, 29-year-old Glenn Hyde and his 22-year-old newlywed wife, Bessie Hyde, decided to go on an unusual trip for their honeymoon. On their farm in Twin Falls, Idaho, Glenn constructed a 20-foot wooden sweep scow for a lengthy whitewater rafting trip through the Grand Canyon. Their plan was to travel to Green River, Utah and spend the next several weeks rafting hundreds of miles down the rapids of the Colorado River before they arrived in Needles, California. Glenn wanted to set a new all-time speed record for traveling through the Grand Canyon while Bessie would make history by becoming the first documented woman to run the canyon. Glenn also refused to carry any life jackets on board his scow and the Hydes began their trip in Green River on October 20th. On November 15th, The couple arrived at River Mile 88 and were on pace to break the record. After hiking up Bright Angel Trail, they arrived at the home of photographer Emery Kolb, who was famous for having navigated the Colorado River. Kolb noticed that Bessie seemed to have grown tired of the trip and appeared apprehensive because they were about to embark on the most dangerous stretch of the river. Since the Hydes were going to be facing cold winter weather, Kolb proposed that they stay with him until the weather improved, but Glenn refused. Kolb also offered to let the Hydes borrow his life jackets, but Glenn turned that offer down as well. The Hydes continued their trip down the river, and the following day, they allowed a tourist named Adolph Gilbert Sutro to hitch a ride in their boat for the next couple of miles. After Sutro and the Hydes went their separate ways, there would be no more confirmed sightings of Glenn or Bessie. They failed to arrive in California at their scheduled time, and on December 6, Glenn's father organized a massive search effort for them. On Christmas Day, a search party led by Emery Kolb and his brother discovered the Hydes' scow, which was trapped in some rocks in the middle of the water near River Mile 237. Even though the boat was upright and undamaged, Glenn and Bessie were not inside. All of the couple's supplies and personal possessions were still in the boat, including Bessie's diary, which had its last entry on November 30th. The last specific location Bessie mentioned was Diamond Creek Rapid at River Mile 225, and evidence was discovered to suggest the Hydes had set up camp there. 42 notches which seemed to represent each day of the trip were carved in the boat's gunwale, which coincided with the November 30th date in Bessie's diary. The scow's bull end stretched from the front of the boat into the river and appeared to be caught on something underwater. Since the Kolb brothers could not dislodge it, they decided to cut the rope. Around this same time period, a prospector reported seeing a brown leather jacket floating in the Colorado River, and while he was unable to retrieve it, Bessie was known to have worn a leather jacket on the trip. In spite of this, no trace was found of the Hydes could be found in Grand Canyon National Park, though there would be some bizarre twists over the years. In 1971, a tour group went on a commercial rafting trip through the Grand Canyon. When they set up camp at Diamond Creek, the guide shared the story about Glenn and Bessie Hyde's disappearance before an elderly woman in the group named Elizabeth Cutler remarked that she was Bessie Hyde. She claimed that Glenn had become so obsessed with completing the rip that he became violent with her, so she proceeded to stab Glenn to death, hike out of the canyon, and start a new life under a new identity. Cutler later recanted this story and denied being Bessie Hyde, and birth records did confirm that she was born under the name Elizabeth Cutler in Pomeroy, Ohio in 1908. Since she had once worked as a psychology professor and had a reputation for playing mind games with people, this may have been the reason Cutler decided to tell people she was Bessie. Shortly after Emery Kolb died in December 1976, his grandson was going through the boathouse on his property when he was surprised to discover the remains of a male skeleton inside a canoe. The victim had a bullet hole in his skull, creating speculation that he was Glenn Hyde and that Kolb had murdered him. Tests discounted the possibility that the victim was Glenn, and in 2008, it was determined that the bones actually belonged to a John Doe who had been found in the Grand Canyon in June 1933 after he committed suicide by shooting himself. Since the victim could not be identified and Kolb was a representative on the county coroner's jury at that time, it seems likely that Kolb took the remains home, kept them in his boathouse, and simply forgot about them for the next 4 decades. In May 1992, Georgie White Clark, who worked as a river running guide in the Grand Canyon for 45 years, died of cancer at the age of 81. Georgie's caretaker was surprised to discover a certified copy of Glenn and Bessie Hyde's marriage certificate inside her lingerie drawer alongside a pistol. She also discovered Georgie's birth certificate, which revealed she was originally born under the name Bessie DeRoss, creating speculation that she was Bessie Hyde under a new identity. However, Georgie's early life was well documented, and since she gave birth to a daughter in March 1929, it seemed very unlikely Bessie would have been 5 months pregnant at the time she vanished. The most prominent theory is that Glenn and Bessie fell out of their boat and drowned at the 232-mile rapid, which contains a pair of large jagged bedrocks nicknamed the Fangs that protrude from underwater and are known for causing trouble for boats. If the Hydes collided with the Fangs, they could have fallen into the water and drowned since they were not wearing life jackets, and their boat continued floating downstream to River Mile 237. I chronicled this disappearance on this week's episode of the Trail Went Cold podcast. Sources.